Back in October of last year, 2025, I was at a restaurant and I was sitting in a booth, and sitting in the booth right behind me was a woman, and she was telling a story. And the story was about how she had gone to a business and had requested a service and requested that service to be performed in a certain manner. And the business informed her that what she was asking for was not possible. And she was saying, in the telling of her story, that she had other businesses of the same nature perform this same service in the way she was asking for it in the past. And she didn't understand why they couldn't do it. And I think she explained to them that she had it done in the past, and they doubled down on the idea that no, what you're asking, we can't do. Now, as she's telling this story, she basically, she gets all the details out and then she stops, and very emphatically she says, "They made me feel stupid." Now, this video that I'm making right now, that you're watching, this is not specifically a personality type video. However, the concept of personality types and cognitive functions plays heavily into what I'm about to talk about. No one at that business made her feel stupid. She felt stupid, but not because someone made her. No one makes us feel stupid. Now, listen to what I am not saying. I am not saying no one does anything or says anything intended to make us feel stupid. People do that. People do say hurtful things with the intention of communicating the idea, "I think you are stupid." People do that. I did not say no one ever calls you stupid. People do. I remember in sixth grade, my sixth grade English class, I had missed a day. And so the next day they were taking a test, and I didn't have the knowledge for the test because I wasn't there the previous day. So while they took the test, I had to go sit out in the hall. And when I was brought back in by the teacher, they began going over another lesson, but it still piggybacked on what they had talked about before I came back in the room. And whenever it became clear that I did not know what was going on, the teacher said, "I thought you were smarter than that." Now, that was a rude and hateful thing to say. And yes, I felt a little stupid for a moment. But then I thought, but wait a minute. I'm not stupid. I don't know what's happening here because I wasn't in the room when it was explained. So you have said something that was hateful. You have said something that communicates that you perceive there is stupidity within me, but I'm not stupid. Now, that is the heart and soul of the difference of what I'm talking about. I want you to think about the top athletes that have ever played in their sport. Wayne Gretzky in hockey, Michael Jordan in basketball. Had someone come to them in the prime of their career, even somebody they respected, right? Even somebody who was knowledgeable about the sport. Had someone come to Michael Jordan in the prime of his career and said, "You're just not very good at basketball," he would have most likely, and should have, just blown that off like it was nothing. Why? Because he knows better. He knows it's not true. No one should have been able to make Michael Jordan feel like he wasn't a good basketball player. Why? Because he had the knowledge that he was. He had the proof. He had the championships. He had the records. He had all of the accolades, the trophies, I would imagine. I don't follow basketball, but I would imagine he probably won a lot of trophies. He had all of the evidence that he needed to know he was not bad at that sport. So even if someone had come directly to him and said, "You suck, You're no good at basketball. And I'm sure plenty of fans did, because they say that all the time in sports, even though they know it's not true, right? Like, I'm a huge hockey fan, and I see all the time people say, Connor McDavid sucks. Connor McDavid plays for the Edmonton Oilers. He's one of the top players in the NHL. He doesn't suck. Everybody knows he doesn't suck. Everyone knows Connor McDavid excels at the sport of hockey, and yet people are still out there running him down and saying horrible things about him, right? But I doubt he believes that. And he shouldn't believe that. So it doesn't matter that someone looks you directly in the eye and says, you're stupid. No, it might matter in the context of the well-being of your relationship with that person, but it shouldn't matter to your ability to know the truth about yourself. So here's the deal. If someone does something or says something that makes you, quote, feel stupid, whether they were intentionally trying to make a jab at you or whether they made a passing comment and they didn't realize that it could have that effect, either way, if you know that you are not stupid, then what difference does it make? It might make a difference, again, in the context of your relationship, right? If you're trying to build a relationship with someone and they're purposefully rude to you, well, that's an issue that you need to work through. But that should not affect whether or not you see yourself as intelligent or stupid. So if someone makes you feel stupid, perhaps the heart and soul of the issue is that you already see yourself that way. And someone just said or did something that brought that to the surface of your thinking. Now, if you don't want to be perceived a certain way, or if you don't want to think of yourself as a certain way, like if you don't want to be a stupid person, then ask yourself, what does it take to not be stupid, whatever stupid is in your mind, right? Because it's a broadly defined term that's going to have different aspects for every human being. And work on that. Work on that with yourself so that you can feel confident that you are not that. But in the context of this situation, the woman was describing a request that she had within an industry of which she's, I could tell by her speaking that she's not an expert on the industry, right? So she shouldn't be expected to be intelligent in that area. If by intelligent, I mean have an extremely thorough working knowledge of all the ins and outs of how they can do business, she shouldn't have a working knowledge in that area. If somebody came to me and said, when it comes to driving a train, you're pretty dumb, I would be like, yeah, I mean, guilty. I don't know anything about driving a train, nor should I. I've never done it. I've never worked in that industry. I know nothing about it. Why wouldn't I be dumb in that area, or stupid or ignorant, or whatever word you want to use to say I don't have knowledge of that area? It's not reasonable. I mean, let me say it this way. It's very reasonable that this woman would have no knowledge in that area, or extremely minimal knowledge in that area. So she shouldn't feel stupid. Even if a company is like, I'm sorry, but you just don't understand our industry. We can't do that. That doesn't make you stupid. It just makes you a person who doesn't understand their industry. And that's reasonable. Now, that being said, she went on to say how she went to another business who does the same thing and they were able to accommodate her. So clearly the thing could be done. It's just that either their expertise was limited at that particular business, so they couldn't do it, or she's mischaracterizing the way that they told her that they wouldn't or couldn't do it, which is very possible. Either way, the point remains. You cannot be made to feel stupid by the words of another person. Now, this video is not for children. This video is for adults. Children can be made to feel stupid, yes, because they don't have the kind of grounding that often, I mean, some do, but most children are not going to have the kind of grounding where they're going to be able to say to themselves, no, I'm not stupid. Although, for me, in 6th grade, for a moment, I felt like I was being made to feel stupid, and then I recalled to myself, no, I'm not stupid. And I considered that woman to be one of my least favorite teachers of my entire life. Not because I felt bad about myself, but because I thought to myself, that is not an appropriate example for an educator to set for the persons in the class. Each of us has a mind that is wired in certain ways. And we have experiences from our youth and from our entire life that informs us on many things. Now, this woman at this restaurant, maybe she had been belittled in school as a youth. Maybe she'd been belittled by her parents. I don't know her background. I don't know her life situation. Maybe her whole life she's struggled with being able to, do well in academic settings, or she regularly maybe struggles with being able to accomplish basic tasks or something of that nature. Maybe in her mind, the things that are necessary to make a person be considered smart are things that she lacks. That's something that she could work on, though, and get herself to a place where she might no longer see herself as stupid. But to say, this person made me feel this way, is a lie we tell ourselves. We tell ourselves these lies because they exonerate us from responsibility. They exempt us from having to go inward and look at our mental wiring and say to ourselves, why did I prioritize that person's words? Why did I choose to believe that that person's words were meant this certain way? Why did I choose to take those words and mull them over in my mind over and over again for months or days or, for however long? Why do I choose to focus on these things? Why do I choose to interpret them in a negative light? Why do I choose to keep thinking about them over and over again? Why do I choose to let them bother me? And if you do see a deficiency in yourself, why do I choose not to address the deficiency? We get to avoid all of that responsibility by simply saying, they made me feel stupid. Saying, you made me feel, he made me feel, she made me feel, is a lie that we tell ourselves to exempt ourselves from the responsibility of becoming better people. Thanks for watching.